Alrighty, frienderinos. You saw the title. Thank you for being here. It's Codex time. Wait, I'm not sure. No, I'm pretty sure I have.
The second species to
There we go.
join the Citadel, the Solarians are warm-blooded amphibians with a hyperactive metabolism. Solarians think fast, talk fast, and move fast. To Solarians, other species seem sluggish and dull-witted. Unfortunately, their metabolic speed leaves them with a relatively short lifespan. Solarians over the age of 40 are a rarity. The Solarians were responsible for advancing the development of the primitive Krogan species to use as soldiers during the Rachni Wars. They were also behind the creation of the genophage bioweapon the Turians used to quell the Krogan rebellions several centuries later. Solarians are known for their observational capability and non-linear thinking. This manifests as an aptitude for research and espionage. They are constantly experimenting and inventing. It is generally accepted that they always know more than they are letting on.
So yeah, Solarians are really interesting to me for a lot of reasons. And you'll notice that the different council races fit into the council like a puzzle piece. This is actually speculated to be the doing of the Reapers. On a literal cosmic scale, they essentially, like the Citadel being there, the mass relays being there, everything like that, is like apparently essentially set up by the Reapers to be discovered and used by all the developing species. Until at a certain point the Reapers come in and destroy everything again. Which, I don't... Apparently the actual reason behind all this... hold on. How do I stop it? I don't think I can. Oh well. Okay, you know what? Okay. What I meant to say was apparently Mass Effect 3 kind of retcons a lot of the plotlines they had going. I don't know about that. I never got super far into 3. All I know is that the ending was hated by a lot of people and that it's really out of left field. That's all I really know about it. I'm gonna get there and have my own thoughts on it. First impressions for y'all, but that's in almost 3 games. We still got a lot of MU1 even left, so... Regardless, okay, back to things we haven't read before. You know, I know we did Turians. I don't really remember if we did Asari. Hold on, I'm doing the wrong thing. What I meant was Codex. There we go.
The Asari
Let me just go ahead and...
species to discover the Citadel. When the Solarians arrived, it was the Asari who proposed the establishment of the Citadel Council to maintain peace throughout the galaxy.
That was the Asari.
The Asari have
I don't know if I remembered that. That's really cool.
centrists of the Council. An all-female race, the Asari reproduce through a form of parthenogenesis. They can attune their nervous system to that of another individual of any gender and of any species to reproduce. This capability has led to the unseemly and inaccurate rumors about Asari promiscuity. Asari can live for over 1,000 years, passing through 3 stages of life. In the maiden stage, they wander restlessly, seeking new knowledge and experience. When the matron stage begins, they meld with interesting partners to produce their offspring. This ends when they reach the matriarch stage, where they assume the roles of leaders and counselors.
It's interesting how... But what's interesting is we're also going to see some different... what's the word? Some exceptions to that rule. And not all Asari end up becoming matriarchs that get that old. Or actually, as far as I'm aware, anyway. But it's interesting how how their society functions like that. And what's interesting is even though their society is so much older, you'd think it's wiser, but we're going to start seeing that a lot of sensibilities that are similar to human sensibilities are in... especially what's essentially their home world. One of the biggest Asari worlds, as far at least I know that, over in Mass Effect 2. There's basically a lot of corporate bullshit going around. It's very reminiscent of humankind, but tied into Asari, and it's probably partly because, well, humans wrote this. You can only kind of... You know, a lot of times fiction ends up representing a lot of humankind a bit more than maybe they even decided, maybe they even wanted to at first. It's interesting. Because in the end, all we really know is being human, if you think about it. So all we can really create from is our experience of being human, right? You know, in a general sense. I just find that interesting, and I find the Asari interesting. I wanted to make sure I read that one, so I apologize if y'all remember that in my first one I did do the Asari, but I don't know if it was available then. So, I know I did Turians, though. Okay, I think... Yeah, I didn't do Ragna.
Over 2,000 years ago, explorers foolishly opened a mass relay to a previously unknown system and encountered something never seen before or since. A species of spacefaring insects guided by a hive mind intelligence. Unfortunately, the Rachni were not peaceful, and the galaxy was plunged into a series of conflicts known as the Rachni Wars. Attempts to negotiate were futile, as it was impossible to make contact with the hive queens that guided the race from beneath the surface of their toxic home world. The emergence of the Krogan ended the Rachni Wars. Bred to survive the harshest environments, the Krogan were able to strike at the queens in their lairs and reclaim conquered council worlds. But when Krogan fleets pressed them back to their homeworld, the Rachni refused to surrender, and the Krogan eradicated them from the galaxy.
The Rachni are really fascinating to me because they became dangerous, but as we learn later this game, they don't have to be. And I always save the Rachni Queen. Spoilers. I don't think... basically, Shepard, and I as a player, too, would not doom an entire race. She just wouldn't do that for any reason, really. Especially if... unless it was... what's interesting is this is a Krogan-y situation, which is interesting because the Krogans were used to fight against the subsect of Rachni that were going nuts. Which, like, all of these that were... I'm trying to remember, because this queen... All I remember is this queen promises that hers will not be rabid and trying to take over the galaxy. That her offspring will not be that. And they end up helping you out, too, which is pretty awesome later on. Anywho, in both games, in 2 and 3, just a little bit. Anywho.
The Elcor are a citadel species native to the high-gravity world Dakuna. They are massive creatures, standing on 4 muscular legs for increased stability. Elcor move slowly, an evolved response to an environment where a fall can be lethal. This has colored their psychology, making them deliberate and conservative. Elcor's speech is ponderous and monotone. Among themselves, scent, slight movements, and sub-vocalized infrasound convey shades of meaning that make a human smile seem as subtle as a fireworks display. Since their subtlety can lead to misunderstandings with other species, the Elcor often go out of their way to clarify when they are being sarcastic, amused, or angry. Dakuna's high gravity impedes mountain formation. Most of the world consists of flat, open plains, which prehistoric Elcor wandered across in small family bands. Modern Elcor still prefer open sky, and can become restless and uncomfortable on long starship journeys.
It's very interesting that the Elcor developed this way. It's very, very cool. They're very deliberate, conservative, slow. They are very monotone, which fits with that whole package. However, they communicate just as complexly, if not more so. I don't think complexly is a word. With just about as much complexity. That's a real word. Um, as other races do, as like for example, as humans do, and it's interesting because like because they have their own sort of language essentially with all the body language and let's see what does it say here. Um, Among themselves, scent, slight movements, and subvocalized infrasound are used to communicate. What's interesting is in the animal kingdom on Earth, like I'm pretty sure most of y'all are aware, most animals have their own ways of communicating that us humans are not 100% privy to, um, which is very interesting. Which is kind of echoed here, and it makes a lot of sense that we would find a more sentient race among all these different varied alien worlds and races um, that also use a different type of communication. And because of the world that they're on, they've developed to be very different from humans or a lot of the other races. And I don't know, I really like the thought put into the Elcor. I love the Elcor as a species, and their monotoneness definitely makes for some nice comedy moments throughout the game, for sure. And some interesting interactions in general. Throughout the games, I should say.
The Hanar are a citadel species known for excessive politeness. They speak with scrupulous precision and take offense at improper language. Hanar that expect to deal with other species take special courses to help them unlearn their tendency to take offense at improper speech. All Hanar have two names. The face name is known to the world. The soul name is kept for use among close friends and relations. Hanar never refer to themselves in the first person in conversation with someone they know on a face name basis. To do so is considered egotistical. So instead they refer to themselves as this one, or the impersonal it. Their homeworld, Kaje, has 90% ocean cover and orbits an energetic white star, resulting in a permanent blanket of cloud. Due to the presence of Prothean ruins on the world, many Hanar worship them, and Hanar myths often speak of an elder race that civilized them by teaching them language.
The Hanar are also extremely, extremely, extremely interesting to me. Especially the fact that they all carry themselves very politely. And the fact that they don't have mouths, they seem to just emanate sound. But they definitely do speak. And the way they light up when they speak is just very cool. They're very cool looking. I really love them. And they're just like, having a race of basically just nice beanie people is pretty awesome to me. I love them. I love these jellies. They're cool peeps. Although, I'm pretty sure we do meet some Hanar that are less than wonderful people. But they're rare. Most of them are just extremely polite, extremely just nice and, people, essentially. But revering the Protheans so much is an interesting thing. Like, sadly, I ended up losing the recording where I did this side quest. But there's for those of you all that might not know, there is a little side quest you can do wherein there's a Turian CSEC officer that's trying to convince a Hanar that's trying to get a Hanar to stop preaching out in the open in the Presidium without a permit because he's trying to spread the word of the Enkindlers, which I don't think. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, Enkindlers is specifically isn't mentioned here, but that's what they call the Protheans. So, anywho. Also, I wanted to say something about a sorry that I keep forgetting to say. I kind of skipped over a lot of my other thoughts about them. Their reproductive system is really interesting, considering, they can just mate with everyone, and I've already made my opinion clear about Asari. I love them. They're my favorite species in this game, and it's interesting how they tend to be diplomatic. And what's interesting is that if you notice, a lot of these species have very, very true stereotypes about them, essentially, though they do explore, exceptions to those rules, but I don't know, all the races kind of fit in a box, and I guess it's hard to make races like this that do not, in a science fiction world, but or a fantasy one for that matter. Making fantasy races, you have to relate them back to humanity sometimes, and using some pretty, or in some way, essentially, as a writer. I'm pretty sure that's required, or else you end up having it be too alien and just not really too, relatable and such. But they all have sort of a thing about them, like the Hanar tended to be generally just very polite, and they have the whole face name thing, and there's a lot of cool implications there. And the Asari, it's interesting because the Asari can take all these other species and essentially, take things from them and become essentially probably, especially considering how old they are, how old they can become, I should say, the wisest, oldest, most knowledgeable species possible, even among the Solarians, which are actually very short-lived. The Solarians are extremely intelligent but short-lived, but the Asari are arguably the race most suited to, diplomatic tasks, not only, and that kind of thing, not only because they can become very old and very wise and very knowledgeable and very skilled at very many things. They're not just diplomatic stuff. We meet Asari in all sorts of walks of life, and I love that. I also love a lot of the Asari culture that's explored in 2 and 3 that really isn't touched on here. And there's a lot to Asari culture. Asari is actually explored among the most, and it makes a lot of sense because there's probably so much to Asari culture because of how old they live. It's very interesting. Now, I don't know, man, I feel like there's more to add there, but if I think of it, I'll let you know. But I love the Asari, man. I could talk about them for hours, probably. And I will throughout this Let's Play.
Also discovered the Keepers, a docile, multi-limbed
of all 3
insect
games,
race
anyway.
that seemingly exists only to maintain and repair the Great Prothean Station. Early attempts to communicate with or study the Keepers were failures, and it is now illegal to interfere with or impede Keeper activity. Because they are completely non-threatening, Keepers have become virtually invisible to everyone else. Similarly, they seem indifferent to other species, except for their tendency to help new arrivals integrate themselves into the Citadel. No matter how many Keepers die due to old age, violence, or accident, they maintain a constant number. No one has discovered the source of new Keepers, but some hypothesize they are genetic constructs. Biological androids created somewhere deep in the inaccessible core of the Citadel itself.
So the Keepers are the most obvious hint in Mass Effect 1 of the whole Reapers control the universe thing. Because the Keepers are set up specifically so that it's really fucking hard to learn about them. They basically just reproduce endlessly and just have very specific ways of going about things. Specifically to be, to allow the Reapers essentially to do what they need to do in order to get their extinction, their next extinction cycle underway, is what the purpose of the Keepers like these, and also to keep the Citadel repaired and maintained so that the next, civilization that rises up ends up taking the Citadel, because it's just sitting there. It's just this extremely advanced space station, and there's so much space on here, and there's so much great about it, and they just settle there because, duh, why would you not? But the Reapers want that. And just because of, I guess, the nature of being sentient, almost, at least the nature of being all of these races, which, again, might be somehow groomed in other ways behind the scenes by the Reapers. And also, I don't know if it's ever really revealed, or if I don't remember why the Reapers even do this, what it started it, and if that's even explored at all, really, and if it makes any sense. And all I know is that Mass Effect 3 probably, and the complaints about the ending are probably because it's, I don't know. Again, I'll have to actually go look at the ending, because I don't know. I have not seen it yet. Regardless. Continuing onward.
The Krogan evolved in a hostile and vicious environment. Until the invention of gunpowder weapons, eaten by predators was still the #1 cause of Krogan fatalities. Afterwards, it was death by gunshot. When the Solarians discovered them, the Krogan were a brutal, primitive species, struggling to survive a self-inflicted nuclear winter. The Solarians culturally uplifted them, teaching them to use and build modern technology, so they could serve as soldiers in the Rachni War. Liberated from the harsh conditions of their homeworld, the quick-breeding Krogan experienced an unprecedented population explosion. They began to colonize nearby worlds, even though these worlds were already inhabited. The Krogan rebellions lasted nearly a century, only ending when the Turians unleashed the Genophage, a Solarian-developed bioweapon that crushed all Krogan resistance. The Genophage makes only 1 in 1,000 pregnancies viable. And today, the Krogan are a slowly dying breed. Understandably, the Krogan harbor a grudge against all other species, especially the Turians.
Except not entirely. There are, members of the species like Rex, who I do believe is the Krogan pictured there, but don't quote me on that. Pretty darn sure that is Rex. Specifically. And you see that there's not very many females anyway. Well, I say that, but you don't really see many Turian females. Except in Mass Effect 2, and probably elsewhere as well, female Turians are mentioned. You don't really see any, or at least as far as I'm aware, until 3, where there's one female Turian who's in a one of the DLCs, the Omega DLC. And then there's also a female Turian in Andromeda. And, again, I'll be getting to both of those games sooner. But anywho.
Driven from their home system by the Geth nearly 3 centuries ago, most Quarians now live aboard the migrant fleet. A flotilla of 50,000 vessels ranging in size from passenger shuttles to mobile space stations.
There's more to say about the Krogan, but I don't really remember much of it right now. I said a lot of it earlier in the footage I lost.
Passage known as the pilgrimage when they come of age. They leave the fleet and only return once they have found something of value they can bring back to their people. Other species tend to look down on the Quarians for creating the Geth and for the negative impact their fleet has when it enters a system. This has led to many myths and rumors about the Quarians, including the belief that underneath their clothes and breathing masks, they are actually cybernetic creatures, a combination of organic and synthetic parts.
The Quarians are kind of a sad story because, well, I mean, Tali spelled it all out for you, and all the other races don't like them, essentially, because of what they did. You're even essentially forced to antagonize her a little bit, which I really don't enjoy that, in this game, but in 2, and 3, you definitely are more, like, of a solidified thing. Actually, I don't know about 3. Is she even in 3? Like, as a party member? I don't remember, but she is in 2, and goddamn, I love her in 2. I just wish that she was romanceable by female Shepard, because I love her, and I will never play as male Shepard. That's just me. There's too much about female shepherd and the wonderful voice work. I forget her name, but the voice actress does a lovely, lovely, wonderful job. A bit more than Mark Meer. That for some reason I remember the voice actor of the shepherd that I don't play. But yeah, I mean, all I know is that yes, I'm a male that plays female characters in video games. Get over it, people. I'm sure there's going to be at least one person, okay, that's going to be like that. I don't understand it. I've never will. I mean, I'll even do LPs where I'll have to voice my character a little bit by just having a little softer tone of voice because I just play female characters and I enjoy it, and I am a male and I'm not like wanting to be trans or anything, but all I know is I love playing females in video games, so fucking leave me alone, to be entirely frank. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's go back to the Krogan for a second, because I said a lot about the Quarians, I think. I don't know, well, basically, it's not that I said a lot about the Quarians earlier. I don't think I did, actually. It's more like, everything that's been said, especially by Tali herself, is really all that I think needs to be added to that right now. Now, in 2, there's a lot of meat there. But in 1, not so much. More than what Tali has said and what I probably said about it while I was talking to her. But of course, if I think of other things I'd really like to say about them, I will say them when I think about that. But, thinky, thonky. Krogan. Krogan is, I feel like there's just this obligatory kind of niche for a species in fiction. In this kind of super imaginative fiction, both science fiction and fantasy, where you need the race that's like fighting war, death, and that's the Krogan. But I love them for that. I love Rex specifically because he takes all of that and he's just this kind of wise old Krogan that is kind of taken all that and just thrown it out the window. Anywho. Moving onward.
The Citadel is an ancient deep space station, presumably constructed by the Protheans. Since the Prothean extinction, numerous species have come to call the Citadel home. It serves as the political, cultural, and financial capital of the galactic community. To represent their interests, most species maintain embassies on the Presidium, the Citadel's inner ring. The Citadel Tower in the center of the Presidium holds the Citadel Council Chambers. Council affairs often have far-reaching effects on the rest of the galactic community. 5 arms, known as the Wards, extend from the Presidium. Their inner surfaces have been built into cities, populated by millions of inhabitants from across the galaxy. The Citadel is virtually indestructible. If attacked, the station can close its arms to form a solid, impregnable shell. For as long as the station has existed, an enigmatic race called the Keepers has maintained it.
I'm not sure if it actually gives you just the ones you haven't seen before, like when you open the drop-down lists. Because I feel like earlier it did that once at least. Like I opened the drop-down list and it immediately jumped to the next one I haven't read yet, or listened to yet in this case. In the case of the primaries. By the way, voice actor doing the primaries. Good job, friendo. Very, very good, solid, narratory voice.
The Council is an executive committee composed of representatives from the Asari Republics, the Turian Hierarchy, and the Solarian Union. Though they have no official power over the independent governments of other
I've said a lot about the Citadel, so nothing to add there.
Carry great weight throughout the galaxy. No single council race is strong enough to defy the other two, and all have a vested interest in compromise and cooperation. Each of the council species has general characteristics associated with the various aspects of governing the galaxy. The Asari are typically seen as diplomats and mediators. The Solarians gather intelligence and information. The Turians provide the bulk of the military and peacekeeping forces. Any species granted an embassy on the Citadel is considered an associate member, bound by the accords of the Citadel Conventions. Associate members may bring issues to the attention of the Council, though they have no input on the decision. The Human Systems Alliance became an associate member of the Citadel in 2165.
So the Council is just a very interesting system of government that I really don't know what to say about right now, except they definitely seem to do a good job of essentially keeping the place in order, but they really should listen to Shepard more about the Reapers, and that's really all I have to say about that right now.
Citadel space is an unofficial term referring to any region of space controlled by a species that acknowledges the authority of the Citadel Council. At first glance, it appears this territory encompasses most of the galaxy. In reality, however, less than 1% of the stars have been explored. Even Mass Effect FTL drive is slow relative to the volume of the galaxy. Empty space and systems without suitable drive discharge sites are barriers to exploration. Only the mass relays allow ships to jump hundreds of light years in an instant. The key to expanding across an otherwise impassable galaxy.
Which again is the Reapers' fault, and they did that on purpose, specifically.
From that hub, FTL drive is used to expand to nearby star clusters. The result is a number of densely developed clusters, thinly spread across the vast expanse of space, connected by the mass relay network. Spectres are
Wait, I've done that one. All right.
Term
I do believe so. Anyway, it was grayed out. I'm not gonna chance that because I'm pretty sure grayed out equals yeah. No. Oh wait, no. Okay, hold on. There is definitely more here. I thought there would be. All right.
Faster than light drives use element zero cores to reduce the mass of the ship.
Nothing to say about Citadel space, by the way. Right now, anyway. I don't think it will, honestly. Pretty self-explanatory.
Travel with negligible relativistic time dilation effects. Starships still require conventional thrusters, chemical rockets, commercial fusion torch, economy ion engine, or military anti-proton drive, in addition to the FTL drive core. With only a core, a ship has no motive power. The amount of EZO and power required for a drive increases exponentially to the mass being moved and the degree it is being lightened. Very massive ships or very high speeds are prohibitively expensive. If the field collapses while the ship is moving at faster than light speed, the effects are catastrophic. The ship is snapped back to sublight velocity. The enormous excess energy shed in the form of lethal Cherenkov radiation.
So yeah, cool techie sciencey stuff. I have no idea how to comment on that because I comment on culture and people and history and that kind of thing. I'm not too good about really thinking about the implications of this kind of stuff. What's interesting is I can invent my own technology, but having things to comment about other people's technical descriptions of things is really hard for me, I've noticed. This is no exception. So I'll probably just be kind of going through these without really saying much about either, unless I come up with something specific. But regarding FTL drives, super self-explanatory, pretty darn cool, nothing else to say about that.
The Normandy is a prototype starship developed by the Human Systems Alliance with the assistance of the Citadel Council. It is optimized for scouting and reconnaissance missions in unstable regions, using state-of-the-art stealth technology. For most ships, the heat generated through standard operations is easily detectable against the absolute zero background of space. The Normandy, however, is able to temporarily sink this heat within the hull. Combined with refrigeration of the exterior hull, the ship can travel undetected for hours, or drift passively for days of covert observation. This is not without risk. The stored heat must eventually be radiated, or it will build to levels capable of cooking the crew alive.
Big oof.
Another component of the stealth system is the Normandy's revolutionary Tantalus drive, a Mass Effect core twice the standard size. The Tantalus drive generates mass concentrations that the Normandy falls into, allowing it to move without the use of heat-emitting thrusters.
Again, no idea what to say about that except pretty cool, and in this case, oof, cooking crew alive doesn't sound fun, but yeah. Gotta radiate that heat, man, or else you're gonna be some roasted, whatever race you are, oofle. Well,
The Mako infantry fighting vehicle was designed for the System Alliance's frigates. Though the interior is cramped, an M35 is small enough to be carried in the cargo bay and easily deployed on virtually any world. With its turreted 155mm mass accelerator and coaxially mounted machine gun, the Mako can provide a fire team with weapons support as well as mobility. Since Alliance Marines may be required to fight on any world, Mako is environmentally sealed and equipped with microthrusters for use on low-gravity planetoids. The Mako is powered by a sealed hydrogen-oxygen fuel cell. It includes a small Element Zero core. While not large enough to nullify the vehicle's mass, the core can reduce it enough to be safely airdropped. When used in conjunction with thrusters, it also allows the Mako to extricate itself from difficult terrain.
So yeah, how the Mako works that we will be driving later. Again, cool stuff. Don't really know what to say about it. Other than the Mako's fun, but also really bouncy and finicky at times, but it's just great. That's what makes it fun. It is a little bit, again, like I said, finicky. Which used to frustrate me, but nowadays, it's just fun. Alright. And that would be... Alright, so 2 more categories over here in primary.
Biotics is the ability of rare individuals to manipulate dark energy.
Lots of new entries. Very nice.
From the brain. Intense training and surgically implanted amplifiers are necessary for a biotic to produce mass effect fields powerful enough for practical use. The relative strength of biotic abilities varies greatly among species and with each individual. There are 3 branches of biotics. Telekinesis uses mass-lowering fields to levitate or impel objects. Mass-raising kinetic fields are used to block or pin objects. Spatial distortion uses rapidly shifting mass fields to shred objects. Most organic species are capable of developing biotic abilities, though there are risks involved. Biotics are the result of an in utero exposure to Element Zero. This usually causes fatal cancers in the victim.
Big oof.
But in rare cases, it coalesces into nodules within the fetus's developing nervous system.
Which allows people like Caden to exist. But yeah, so, yeah, how biotics works, aka this game's magic. Not sure how else to comment on that. Like I said, all these tech stuff will probably be a lot like the ships and vehicles stuff. Not really sure what to say about a lot of it.
An artificial intelligence is
Very
a self-aware
self-explanatory
computer system capable of learning and independent decision-making. Creation of a conscious AI requires adaptive code, a slow, expensive education, and a specialized quantum computer called a blue box. An AI cannot be transmitted across a communication channel or computer network. Without its blue box, an AI is no more than data files. Loading these files into a new blue box will create a new personality, as variations in the quantum hardware and runtime results create unpredictable variations.
Interesting.
The geths serve as a cautionary tale against the dangers of rogue AI, and in Citadel space, they are technically illegal. Advocacy groups argue, however, that an AI is a living, conscious entity, deserving the same rights as organics. They argue that continued use of the term artificial is institutionalized racism on the part of organic life. The term synthetic is considered the politically correct alternative.
It's really interesting because, out of likely just the desire to create something so amazing as another living, thinking entity, well, not living quite, but thinking, being, feeling entity out of technology is probably part of why these people go through all the necessary super complex schooling and extremely, get all the extremely expensive equipment in order to develop things like this. And it's interesting how AI is so polarized, but it makes sense that something like this would be so polarized in whether it's a good thing or not. And what's interesting is that, well, we'll have our own ship AI in Mass Effect 2 and 3, and I love her, to be entirely frank. I really do. You can kind of mold her a bit, too, from what I remember. I like that. I like a lot, mold how she ends up, dealing with things and decisions she makes and etc. And I like her character arcs for sure, in 2 and 3 that I've seen. Hi, Mom. Mom, you don't need to come in here. Don't come in here. Thank you. Alright, so VI.
Virtual intelligence is an advanced form of user interface software. VIs use a variety of methods to simulate natural conversation, including an audio interface and an avatar personality to interact with. Although a VI can provide a convincing emulation of sentience, they are not self-aware, nor can they learn or take independent action. VIs are used as operating systems on commercial and home computers. Minimal VI agents are also available. Agents are compact and specialized. Some serve as personal secretaries, filtering calls and scheduling meetings based on user-defined priorities. Others are advanced search engines, propagating themselves across the extranet to collate user-requested data. Commercial VIs in a variety of stock personalities are available at any software retailer. Boutique firms and hobbyists also build unique VIs to personal specification. Although software emulation of living personalities is illegal, reconstructions of famous historical figures are common.
Kind of like how piracy is common in real life. I'll actually go out of my way to say I pirate video games. You know why? Because they're expensive and I really like playing new video games. And these companies that have the money to produce these games are probably fine anyway, most of the time. And if they aren't, I mean, I don't know. It might be... You could argue that it's wrong, but I don't think piracy has a place. And that it'll never really destroy any given industry as much as it continues to persist and exist. Regardless, I probably will get some hate comments for that, but yeah. I still will probably be pirating video games, sorry. Some of the stuff on this channel has been pirated. Actually, yes, this particular version of all 3 Mass Effect games are pirated. You know why? Because fuck EA and their goddamn Origin and their goddamn DLC out the ass expensiveness. Now, granted, not with this game so much as the other 2, but you still need Origin in order to get the Mass Effect 1 DLCs anymore, as far as I'm aware. And to go through EA and their just horribly optimized software that just has too many goddamn technical issues to be worth your goddamn time sometimes. What's funny is I will be playing through the Dragon Age trilogy here, and well, that past Dragon Age Origins, that will require me to use Origin. Rippity. Anywho.
Mass relays are feats of Prothean engineering advanced far beyond the technology of any living species. They are enormous structures scattered throughout the stars and can create corridors of virtually mass-free space, allowing instantaneous transit between locations separated by years or even centuries of travel using conventional FTL drives. Primary mass relays can propel ships thousands of light years, often from one spiral arm of the galaxy to another. However, they have fixed one-to-one connections. A primary relay connects to one other primary relay and nowhere else. Secondary relays can only propel ships across a few hundred light years. However, they are omnidirectional. A secondary relay can send a ship to any other relay within its limited range. There are many dormant primary relays whose corresponding twins have not yet been located. These are left inactive until their partner is charted, as established civilizations are unwilling to blindly open a passage that might connect them to a hostile species.
So yeah, mass relays, again, don't know what to say about all this technical specifications. Like this specific, all this explanation, trying to wrap my head around it, I can't, is kind of making my head hurt a tiny bit. It's probably partly because I'm a little tipsy. been drinking a little bit. But, yeah.
Element zero can increase or decrease the mass of a volume of space-time when subjected to an electrical current. With a positive current, mass is increased. With a negative current, mass is decreased. The stronger the current, the greater the magnitude of the dark energy mass effect. In space, low-mass fields allow FTL travel and inexpensive surface-to-orbit transit. High-mass fields create artificial gravity and push space debris away from vessels. In manufacturing, low-mass fields permit the creation of evenly blended alloys, while high-mass compaction creates dense, sturdy construction materials. The military makes extensive use of mobility-enhancing technologies, with Mass Effect utilizing fighting vehicles standard frontline issue in most military forces. Mass Effect fields are also essential in the creation of kinetic barriers or shields to protect against enemy fire.
Once again, cool. Mass Effect fields, nice, wonderful. Just like all of these, they're cool to me. I don't know what to say about them. And VIs are just kind of light AIs that are used for all sorts of different purposes and are legal. So I didn't know what to say about those. But they're cool. I like all these concepts.
Omni-tools are handheld devices that combine a computer microframe, sensor analysis pack, and manufacturing fabricator. Versatile and reliable, an Omni-tool can be used to analyze and adjust the functionality of most standard equipment, including weapons and armor, from a distance. The fabrication module can rapidly assemble small three-dimensional objects from common reusable industrial plastics, ceramics, and light alloys. This allows for field repairs and modifications to most standard items, as well as the reuse of salvaged equipment. Omni-tools are standard issue for soldiers and first-in colonists.
Which is very interesting. Omni-tools are a really super not hard science thing, as far as I know, though. All of that and that tiny little holographic wrist thing, yeah, wow, amazing. Awesome, but probably not possible in real life, but really fucking cool. That's all I gotta say about that. I love Omni-tools and the idea of them, though. It'd be cool to be able to play with something like that in real life, though, that's for sure. Codex, and be able to use it for stuff. Codex. Although, maybe one day something like that will be possible in real life. That'd be cool. Okay, apparently I haven't actually read all of these. Wait, there's one more. I'm not sure if I've done this one yet, so I'll let it play.
Areas that don't need to be flexible, such as the chest or shins, are reinforced with sheets of lightweight, ablative ceramic. The outer layer consists of automatically generated kinetic barriers. Objects traveling above a certain speed will trigger the barrier's reflex system and be deflected, provided there is enough energy left in the shield's power cell. Armored hardsuits are sealable to protect the wearer from extremes of temperature and atmosphere. Standard equipment includes an onboard mini-frame and a communications, navigation, and sensing suite. The mini-frame is designed to accept and display data from a weapon's smart targeting system to make it easier to locate and eliminate enemies.
I find it extremely interesting, this here, just because I love when games go out of their way to explain why something works the way that they do in gameplay. Because these were concepts that were likely generated in gameplay, and then there was lore appended to it. I love the nature of that, and that it just helps flesh out the whole experience of the game as something super immersive and something just super imaginative and wonderful and just complete, because you know why your shields only take enough a small amount of damage, and then your armor takes the rest, and then you die at a certain point. It's amazing. And then you get actually hurt at a certain point too. I think the more armor you have, the less health damage you're going to take from a specific thing. I don't really know exactly how the armor works in this game, or in the series, but yeah. In gameplay terms, but yeah, really, really awesome. I know how it works in 2, because it's used in bars, but at least for the enemies, not with us.
Tiny metal slugs suspended within a mass-reducing field, accelerated by magnetic force to speeds that inflict kinetic damage. The ammo magazine is a simple block of metal. The gun's internal computer calculates the mass needed to reach the target based on distance, gravity, and atmospheric pressure, then shears off an appropriate-sized slug from the block. A single block can supply thousands of rounds, making ammo a non-issue during any engagement. Top-line weapons also feature smart targeting that allows them to correct for weather and environment. Firing on a target in a howling gale feels the same as it does on a calm day at the practice range. Smart targeting does not mean a bullet will automatically find the mark every time the trigger is pulled. It only makes it easier for the marksman to aim.
Again, reasons for all the gameplay stuff, like the energy system, and the fact that it gets heated up because it's shaving off a little tiny thing out of a block of metal, which would make sense because it's heating it up every once in a while. And then in 2, they actually retcon this and make it ammo, but the ammo is actually heat clips that are ejected from all the standard every single weapon that's ever made anymore, which is a weird thing to me. And the fact that all weapons are like that anymore, and there's none that still work like this, even though they worked fine, yeah, that's a plot hole. I'd rather have no plot holes than anything I ever make. I will certainly try my best, but something of this scale, it's inevitable to have plot holes, in my opinion. I don't fault them for that. But it's still strange, but how it works in gameplay is satisfying to me in practice. I like it, actually, in 2. I know at least one person who disagrees with that, but it's in gameplay, it's cool. In lore, it's a plot hole. Oh well. Assignment, or not assignments time, derpy. I meant secondary time.